Welcome to Part 2. Damien's lips curled into a faint smile, and he slowly lowered himself back onto the pew, his eyes never leaving Lucia's face.
Then I'll stay, if you don't mind,
he said, his voice soft and tinged with a hint of vulnerability. Lucia felt her heart skip a beat, her mind racing with 1,000 conflicting thoughts. She should have sent him away, reminded him of the sanctity of this place and the boundaries of her vows. But something within her, a quiet longing she had long suppressed, compelled her to nod her assent. As Damien settled back into the pew, Lucia found herself drawn to the contrast of his rugged appearance against the reverent surroundings. There was a certain grace in the way he moved, a fluidity that belied the strength she could sense in his frame. And in the flickering candlelight, his features softened, revealing a glimpse of the man beneath the facade of the town's notorious bad boy. Lucia's gaze drifted to his hands, calloused and scarred, a testament to a life lived far from the cloistered existence she had chosen. She wondered what stories they could tell, what experiences had shaped the man who now sat beside her in this sacred space. The silence that followed was no longer weighted with tension, but rather a sense of cautious understanding. Lucia found herself drawn into the quiet contemplation, her own thoughts drifting between the weight of her vows and the undeniable pull of Damien's presence. Time seemed to slow, the rhythmic ticking of the church clock the only marker of its passing. Lucia and Damien sat in companionable silence, their worlds colliding in this unexpected intersection, the boundaries between faith and desire blurring with each passing moment. As the evening wore on, Lucia felt a subtle shift within her, a stirring of emotions she had long since buried. The wall she had so carefully constructed around her heart began to crumble, and in its place, a glimmer of hope and a newfound curiosity emerged. For in this moment, Lucia realized that the world she had chosen to leave behind was not as simple or black and white as she had once believed. And as she turned her gaze to the young man beside her, she knew that her life would never be the same. As the days passed, Damien's visits to the church became more frequent. He would arrive in the evening, the rumble of his motorcycle echoing through the ancient stone walls, and quietly make his way to the front pew, where Sister Lucia sat in silent contemplation. At first, Lucia was unsettled by his presence, the contrast between his rugged appearance and the sacred space of the church creating an undeniable tension. She would steal glances at him, observing the way his brow furrowed in thought, his fingers tracing the worn wood of the pew, as if searching for answers. Yet, over time, a strange sense of familiarity began to settle between them. Their conversations were sparse, often limited to a simple greeting or an exchange of nods, but there was an unspoken understanding that grew with each passing day. Lucia found herself drawn to the vulnerability that seemed to linger beneath Damien's tough exterior, a vulnerability that she could not help but empathize with. One evening, as the last rays of the sun filtered through the stained glass windows, casting a warm glow over the church, Lucia noticed Damien's gaze fixed on her. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world seemed to slow down around them. Lucia felt her heart flutter, a sensation she had long since buried deep within her, and she quickly averted her gaze, her cheeks flushing with a mixture of guilt and curiosity. In the days that followed, their silent exchanges became more frequent, a silent language of shared glances and unspoken understanding. Lucia found herself anticipating Damien's arrival, her mind wandering to the questions that burned within her. What had brought him to this place of solace? What demons did he wrestle with that led him to seek refuge in the church? As Lucia sat in the pew, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns of the wooden armrest, she couldn't help but wonder about the path that had led Damien to this moment. She knew that he had a reputation in the town, a troubled past that had earned him the label of the local rebel. Yet, in the quiet moments they shared, she saw glimpses of a man who was searching for something more, a man who was grappling with his own demons and seeking a way to find redemption.
I've been coming here a lot lately,
he said, his voice barely above a whisper.
I'm not sure why, but there's something about this place that, it just feels right, you know.
Lucia nodded, her own words failing her as she struggled to find the right thing to say. She knew that she should maintain her vow of silence, that she should not engage in any conversation that could jeopardize her commitment to the church. Yet, there was something about Damien's vulnerability that tugged at her heart, a part of her that longed to reach out and offer him the comfort he seemed to be seeking.
I've done a lot of things in my life that I'm not proud of.
Damien continued, his gaze fixed on the flickering flames.
I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've hurt people. But when I'm here, in this place, it's like I can finally breathe, you know.
Lucia felt a lump forming in her throat as she listened to his words, the weight of his confession hanging in the air between them. She wanted to reach out, to tell him that she understood, that she too had struggled with the complexities of faith and the burdens of her own choices. But the vow of silence that she had taken bound her, and she could only nod in response, her eyes conveying the empathy she felt. Damien turned to her then, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine.
I don't know why, but when I'm here, with you, it's like I can finally be myself. Without all the baggage and the judgment. It's the only place I feel like I can be honest, you know.
Lucia felt her breath catch in her throat, the weight of his words settling deep within her. She knew that she should not encourage this connection, that she should maintain the boundaries that her vows had set. But in that moment, as she gazed into Damien's eyes, she felt a stirring within her, a longing that she had long since buried. The two of them sat in silence, the air thick with unspoken emotions, until the last of the candles flickered and died, leaving them in the darkness. Lucia knew that she should leave, that she should retreat to the safety of her quarters and her devotions. But something kept her rooted to the spot, her heart racing with a mix of fear and something else, something she dared not name. As the first rays of dawn began to filter through the stained glass windows, Lucia rose from her seat, her legs trembling slightly. She turned to Damien, her eyes meeting his one last time, and in that moment, she knew that their bond had deepened in a way that she could no longer ignore. With a heavy heart, she turned and made her way out of the church, her mind racing with the implications of what had transpired between them. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for part 3.